Please be aware, in this podcast series we talk about all areas of safeguarding, which some people may find upsetting. So please make sure you're okay listening to today's topic. Be mindful of those around you, such as children, that you might not want to listen in. Hi, I'm SSS Safeguarding Director Sam Preston.
And I'm former head teacher and content author Sarah Spinks.
Hello and welcome back to Safeguarding Conversations, where we explore the issues shaping safeguarding practice in schools and colleges. And today we're focusing on an area that's often referenced in safeguarding reviews, but can sometimes feel difficult to define in practice: professional curiosity. We'll also be exploring how professional curiosity connects to recognising cumulative harm and identifying those patterns early. Because safeguarding concerns are not always obvious and risk rarely appears all at once.
That's right. And in many serious case reviews, we see the same theme emerging. Concerns were present, information was known, but the significance of the pattern was not fully recognised at the time. So professional curiosity is about looking beyond the presenting situation, asking thoughtful questions, and remaining open to the possibility that there may be more to understand. It's about noticing small changes, inconsistencies, or emerging concerns and considering what they might mean when viewed together.
Absolutely, that building the picture, isn't it? So professional curiosity isn't about being suspicious of everyone. It's about being thoughtfully attentive, and it's about maintaining a mindset that asks, what might this be telling me? What might this be telling us? Rather than simply recording isolated incidents.
Exactly. Safeguarding rarely involves a single dramatic event. More often, concerns build gradually. A child may appear increasingly withdrawn. Attendance may begin to drop slightly. Behaviour may change. Communication with parents may become more difficult. Individually, each of these may not reach a safeguarding threshold, but when viewed together, they might suggest that a family or a child is experiencing sort of increasing difficulty, or risk.
Yeah, and that idea of cumulative harm is really important. Harm does not always occur in one moment. It can develop slowly over time. And cumulative harm, it refers to the impact of repeated experiences, which individually may seem low level, as you've described, Sarah, but collectively can significantly affect a child's well-being, development, and their sense of safety.
So I think examples might include ongoing emotional neglect, repeated exposure to conflict in a home, for example, persistent instability, or unmet needs which gradually escalate. And I think in many cases, there's no single point where someone can say, this is when the harm began. Instead, that risk develops gradually.
And that can make it harder for professionals to recognise when concerns need to be escalated. As professionals, they're often managing many competing demands, and individual concerns may appear manageable when viewed in isolation. But that's why professional curiosity is so important, because it encourages practitioners to step back and consider the bigger picture.
It can. And another example, a child may present with increasing anxiety, for example. There may be occasional late arrivals to school. Homework may not be completed consistently. Communication with home may become less responsive. So each issue may appear, as I said before, relatively minor, but together they might indicate that a child's circumstances are becoming more challenging.
And also, Sarah, you've said they may appear relatively minor, but they may not actually really appear as a safeguarding concern.
Exactly.
If homework's not being completed consistently, my first thought would not be safeguarding.
That's right.
I would be
That's
thinking,
right.
why should homework not be, getting done? But when you look at that factor with this child is also seeming to be quite anxious, and they have been late, we've not really been, then you start thinking, hang on a minute, we may have a safeguarding picture here.
Exactly,
Yeah.
exactly.
And sometimes those small changes, they are the early indicators that support may be needed.
Exactly. Early recognition allows earlier support. Professional curiosity encourages us, I think, to consider context rather than simply recording isolated facts.
Yeah.
It might, which comes back to we bang on about all time chronology. It might involve noticing repeated patterns or, such
Yeah.
as frequent minor injuries or recurring friendship difficulties or changes in presentation. It might involve recognizing when explanations do not quite align with what is being observed.
Yeah.
Importantly, professional curiosity should always be balanced with respectful engagement. It's not about making assumptions, but about ensuring that children remain visible, I think, within the safeguarding system.
Yeah. One of the challenges can be that information sits in different places. And one member of staff may notice a change in behaviour, another may observe attendance concerns, and another may hear something, say, during a pastoral conversation.
Yeah, I mean, that's often the case. No single professional always holds the full picture. So I think effective safeguarding systems help ensure that concerns are recorded consistently.
Yeah.
And that patterns can be identified across time. So when information is then brought together, seemingly small concerns then become more clearly understood.
And I suppose the professional curiosity in terms of I might know one bit of the picture and that might be a change in behaviour. My professional curiosity, I would be immediately thinking, I'll just have a look at their attendance. What's their attendance been like? I might just speak to the pastoral team because I know there's been some contact there. That's the sort of action that we're talking about.
Yeah.
It's not just about individuals, it's about a safeguarding culture, isn't it, Sarah?
Yeah, definitely.
I mean, it sits within a wider culture where staff feel confident to record concerns and share information appropriately and ask questions when something just does not feel quite right. And a strong safeguarding culture, it supports reflective thinking. It encourages staff to notice changes, discuss concerns, and, as I've said before, seek advice when needed.
Yeah, and it also supports escalation where appropriate, ensuring
Yeah.
that children receive support before difficulties become more significant. And that's one of the wonderful things about early help.
Yeah.
You start to get all these little bits. So you think some help's needed here before it becomes something that's much bigger.
We often hear the phrase, Sarah, the voice of the child. So, how does that connect to professional curiosity?
Well, professional curiosity includes paying attention to what children communicate, both verbally and non-verbally. So children may not always directly disclose concerns. Sometimes communication may be indirect through behaviour, emotional responses, or changes in engagement. And professional curiosity encourages us to consider what a child's presentation might be telling us about the experience.
And recognising patterns early can make a significant difference to outcomes, as early identification allows professionals to offer support, involve appropriate services where needed, and help reduce the likelihood of harm escalating.
Definitely. And it also allows schools, I think, to work collaboratively with families, recognising that early support can often prevent situations from becoming more serious.
So the key message is really that safeguarding is not only about responding to clear disclosures or obvious incidents. It's also about, and when I say obvious incidents, I mean, something that would automatically, like two children fighting, something that you would quite clearly, you would think, right, I need to have a look at this and find out what's going on. It's also about noticing change, recognizing patterns, and, maintaining the professional curiosity.
Exactly. And it's small pieces of information that collectively, when viewed together, can become significant. And it's often early understanding, I think, that creates opportunities for that earlier support.
I think for me, really key, we talk about having professional curiosity. It really helps ensure that children, they don't become invisible within the system. It helps professionals remain open-minded and reflective and attentive to emerging concerns, if that makes sense.
Definitely. And I think importantly, it helps ensure that safeguarding practice remains proactive rather than purely reactive.
Absolutely. Well, thanks for listening to this episode of Safeguarding Conversations. As ever, please head to our website if you would like to access any of our other podcasts. And you'll also find lots of free to access resources there, as well as our training portfolio. See you next time.